Greetings, clan lore enjoyers, and welcome back to another episode of me recounting the founding events of some of my Warrior Kids fan clans. This is the third part in a series of videos that should be watched in chronological order. I will link the first one above, and I will see you here once you're all caught up. Also, it is kind of an oversight that I haven't really mentioned this in the beginning, but all the clan stories I tell during this series are based on prompts I randomly selected from a post I found a while back on Quota, from Warrior Wolf, or Moth as they seem to be named now. There's a link to the corresponding entry in the so-called Warrior Cats journal at the bottom of the description of the story videos, if you're interested in checking it out for yourself. But now, let's get on with the video. In the years following the founding of Gold Clan, Wave Clan has become more and more strict on sticking to themselves and distrusting of outsiders. Any closeness to Gold Clan cats or loners is very much frowned upon, so it is no surprise that when Pearl Shadow, a Wave Clan warrior, tries to introduce his pregnant mate from outside the clan to the rest of Wave Clan, she is quickly denied to join the clan and sent away. Pearl Shadow panics now that his plans for the future are shattered right in front of him, and pleads with his leader instead of accompanying his mate, Bailey, to the border. However, the leader doesn't budge, and Pearl Shadow, after realizing that none of his clanmates would back him up, sprints after the patrol who is guiding Bailey out of the territory. He encounters the patrol on its way back to camp and inquires where they saw Bailey off, promptly crossing the border at the given direction and running not into his mate, but the Viper. The venomous Viper. But hey, that is where we will leave Pearl Shadow for now, and take a look into the Tulak place a few moons later, where Scrooge, the kitty pet, lives. He resides in a nice suburban house with a small garden that is abundant in beautiful flowers and herbs. Scrooge adores the plants almost as much as his housefolk, who would tell him all sort of things about them while gardening. On one fateful day, the kitty pet ventures out into a few neighboring gardens, loosely checking the area, when he stumbles on some white flowers he has never seen before. Intrigued, he investigates the white-petaled plants, sniffing, tasting and pawing at them, only to have the world around him slowly blur and turn to pitch black. Scrooge lays in the soft-petaled flower bed when almost inaudible footsteps approach him. The kitty pet raises his head, or at least he thinks he does, gazing into complete emptiness except for a single cat he can clearly make out against the background of nothingness. The pity in the eyes of the Tom standing beside Scrooge shifts to stunned surprise as he comprehends that Scrooge is staring right back at him. After some confused silence, the stranger introduces himself as Pearl Shadow and hesitantly explains that he died some time ago, but can't go to Light Clan, his afterlife, yet, because his mate and kids don't have a safe place to live, and he wants them to be safe in some sort of clan. Scrooge opens his eyes again, this time for real, through the small space of a pet crate and sterile smell of a vet. Though the kitty pet hasn't forgotten the weird conversation with the dead cat, so he makes the decision to help Pearl Shadow in his task and runs away from his two legs once he is brought back home. Pearl Shadow, unable to easily speak directly to Scrooge, now that the latter isn't on the brink of death anymore, establishes a way of communication with the younger Tom through little signs, like rustling bushes and reflections in water. With the help of Pearl Shadow's directions, Scrooge finds Bailey and her 3 kids, and explains the whole ordeal of being led here by the ghost of Bailey's deceased mate. Bailey hesitantly starts to trust Scrooge's story, since there isn't really a feasible way for some random kitty pet to know so much about Pearl Shadow and the story otherwise. Together they move into the bushland and settle down, inviting other cats they meet in the area to live with them. Especially other cats with their kids and sick or injured cats find a new home with Bailey and Scrooge, since Scrooge continuously tries to put his knowledge of plants to good use with treating hurt cats. After several seasons living in the bushland, their little community had grown to a decent size, and Pearl Shadow leads his friend Scrooge to the lightning tree and pond to converse with Light Clan. By sleeping next to the pond, surrounded by dancing fireflies, Scrooge gets his clan name, Skygaze, and a sign as to who should lead this new clan. One of Bailey and Pearl Shadow's now adult kids would take up the mantle of leader, while Skygaze would continue to care for his clanmate's health. Skygaze is also the one to name the clan IrisClan, after the flower that may have poisoned him, but in the end brought him and Pearl Shadow together. But where does this leave Pearl Shadow? The former Wave Clan cat and ghost keeps spending his time around his living family, including Skygaze, who is the only one he can at least somewhat communicate with, to watch over them. However, when Skygaze starts to grow old and reach the end of his days, Pearl Shadow is confronted with a dilemma. Does he stay a ghost, watching his kin from afar, or does he let go and accompany his friend on his way to LightClan? In the end, Pearl Shadow decides to not leave Skygaze alone in his last moments, finally facing LightClan and being properly reunited with Skygaze. As you may have gathered from the founding story, IrisClan is an extremely spiritual and LightClan-oriented clan. The healers have a lot of sway in the clan, to the point that they can overrule the leader without much question, as they are considered to represent LightClan's will and wisdom. Usually, IrisClan will have 3 medicine cats. The eldest and most experienced one works close with the leader and acts as an advisor and spiritual guide. The second oldest medicine cat is in charge of the healing part of the job and takes on the more practical side of teaching their apprentice, while the older one does the spiritual teaching. The youngest healer is in training. Even when they lose their par suffix, they will still be considered in learning, to a certain degree at least, but trusted with more important tasks. They usually assist with the caretaking of the clan. The position of healer is a very popular one in IrisClan, similar to how young cats will dream about being leader in the original book series, though medicine cat apprentices are usually only accepted once there was some kind of sign from LightClan, signaling that they are indeed destined for this path. And that is what I have to say about IrisClan for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great week and see ya next time!